Hi guys, and welcome back to Lexalexus. Immediately after game week 19 has concluded, week 20 is right around the corner. As I've alluded to already, we've already made it to the busy period of our score predictions. And today I'm going to be talking about my reaction to the 10 games that took place in the Championship a couple of days ago. And I'm going to be giving you my predictions for the upcoming 12 games that we've got coming up, taking place on Tuesday and Wednesday. If you're a fan of these teams and saw your team over the weekend, I'd love to hear your reaction on what you felt went on in terms of the last couple of days. I'd be very interested to know in the comments. The subscriber getting the shout out today is David Chamberlain. Thank you so much, David, for subscribing to the channel. If you do subscribe to the channel, it's likely your name will be read out after my next video. And I'm just making it clear, no subscription goes unnoticed. I do appreciate all and every single one of you that does leave a like, leaves a subscription and shares the video. It really does not go unnoticed, and it is tremendously appreciated. If we can go for a 50 like target, that would be absolutely amazing too. But without any further ado, let's start predicting week 20. We start things off with a very intriguing game, and I don't know what to call for this one. It's Blackburn versus Oxford. And I'm a bit dissatisfied for what I've saw for both of these sides for different reasons. For Blackburn, it's happened again. Drainage problems caused the game to be abandoned yet again, despite Blackburn leading the game again by 1-0, and it means it will be very, very likely that a full replay will happen. And it is a little bit embarrassing now that you're getting a second tier side like Blackburn, where you've had so many other teams in Lancashire have loads and loads of rain over the weekend, and none of their pitches were any risk of being pulled off. So the drainage problems there need to seriously be addressed. It is appalling for the supporters who have to get constantly pulled through into this. It is not their fault whatsoever. It is something that surely the club have to deal with, and even the council have to deal with as well. It's appalling that they've allowed this to go on, and it's now caused 2 cancellations and abandonments for games. For Sheffield Wednesday fans especially must feel really frustrated that they've had to travel, and now they're inevitably going to have to go back at a later day. And frustrating for Blackburn because, again, had the game finished, it would have likely have ended in their favour. It would have given them a little bit of momentum with their home form, which still has been very, very slack at the moment. I think it's only Sheffield Wednesday who picked up less points at home than what Blackburn have currently got at the moment. But they're facing an Oxford side who are in a precarious position, and I mentioned this in my score prediction that I felt that they would actually not get 3 points against Swansea, despite the fact they had that brave performance against Ipswich. They play typically better against the sides that they don't expect to be, but when it's against sides around them who they are expected to give more of a performance, they're kind of going to their shell a little bit, and they do not attack the game as heavily. And they lost in the end to Swansea, and pretty damaging in the way that they did as well. This game to me is very, very important. If Oxford want any chance of not getting involved in a relegation fight, at least in this December period, I think they need to pick up something in this game. But honestly, as a prediction, I mean, if this game does end up happening, I think we will get a Blackburn win. There was enough signs that I saw in that Sheffield Wednesday game of Hashi especially getting the one on the score sheet. I think he'll be a main impact for this game. And as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Blackburn. But fingers crossed that Blackburn can actually finish a home game and they can actually start getting the results that they deserve. Next up, it's Charlton versus Middlesbrough, and this is from another club who didn't manage to play a full 90 minutes this weekend either, but again, for very, very, very different circumstances, and unfortunately really, really sad circumstances. So of course, Charlton and Portsmouth kicked off, and at the 15th minute, game was stopped due to the medical emergency in the stands, and it was actually later confirmed by Charlton on their social media that very, very sadly the fan actually did pass away moments after he was taken. I mean, unbelievably sad, and it's one of these moments where you do have to prioritize the family and the supporters over football, and it's really, really sad still, especially at this time of the year where you do get a tragedy like that. And I can only send my condolences and my prayers to the supporters' family and Charlton and the supporters and everyone involved who may have witnessed the incident as well. And again, this game between Charlton and Portsmouth will likely be replayed at a later day, and it is very, very, sad circumstances. And in terms of how they pick up from this, they've then got to now play again at home against a Middlesbrough side where they have a little bit more of a positive weekend because they managed to put 4 goals past Hull. It was an impressive performance from Middlesbrough and Kim Hellberg, and I was especially impressed with the midfield contribution in that game. And if this is the sort of performances we're going to see from Middlesbrough on the road, it could be the case where actually his style, Kim Hellberg, might actually benefit Middlesbrough a little bit more long term in terms of a championship. I know the reaction of fans is actually saying that he's been an upgrade of Rob Edwards. I feel like you can't get too carried away just yet. He's only had 2 picks of the cherry in terms of games at the moment, and I do think this is a tough game. I know Charlton's form suggests that they are struggling a bit. It is 4 consecutive defeats from Charlton, and Middlesbrough would probably be playing Charlton at the right time while they're most vulnerable. And as a prediction, it's a tough one to call, of course, but I think it's going to be a Middlesbrough win for me. I've been really encouraged of what I've seen from them recently. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 away victory, and I could just hope that we get a really good performance from both sides, and I hope it turns out to be a really good game. Next up, it is Preston versus Coventry, and it's 2 sides that failed to win last weekend. So Preston were involved in a home 1-1 draw against Wrexham. I'm guessing Preston fans are sick of the sight of Keeper Moore. He seems to always score against Preston, and he did so 4 minutes in. So I was thinking, here we go again. He's already going to be living rent-free in Preston's minds. But to be fair to them, Preston managed to build their way back into the game, and they managed to get an equaliser pretty late on. And I do think, on reflection, I think both sides would have felt at times that they could have got the 3 points. But in the end of it, as a result of that, I think a draw is somewhat the fairest result that they could have been given. Now, Coventry have got a big response to get. So they suffered their 2nd defeat of the season, a 3-0 defeat to Ipswich. Now, I've seen a whole mixture of reactions, and Coventry fans were very, very unhappy with the refereeing in that game, and I do understand that there were decisions that didn't go their way, especially a red card, potential red card that George Hurst could have had in that game, which could have swung the game. And ultimately, I think the sign of champions and kind of counteract that argument, because yes, I understand it's a major part of the game, but we've seen it many times before that even if decisions don't go the way, you have to test your mettle in that moment, and you have to try and get through that adversity and still get those chances. And Coventry did have chances. They just weren't clinical, but Ipswich were on the day, and they did manage to get 3 past them, and that kind of surprised me because Ipswich at home haven't been amazing so far, but this is another example of what I'm seeing with Ipswich against a team who do not necessarily sit 11 men behind the ball. They can actually go at teams, and Coventry, I think, will learn from that. And Preston, I think will certainly not play the way that Ipswich played. So I think it will benefit Coventry a little bit more, who have been more used to holding on to the ball and trying to dictate play and trying to break teams down. And they've done so successfully for a lot of the times this season. But we've said it already, that Preston's home form is nothing to be sniffed about. They've picked up some big results against Ipswich, Leicester, of course. They've picked up some great results at home already this season. Sheffield United, I think, as well. I've nearly forgot that. So those are some really big wins that Preston have already got in detail. So can Coventry get a result? And from what I remember in recent history, Coventry have actually only won once against Preston in 20 years of league games. Now, they actually beat Preston for the first time in 20 years at the CBS. But I think at Deepdale, it's a very tough place for Coventry to go to. They rarely get a result. But this really feels to me that this is a very different Coventry side. And if they win this game, that proves to me that Coventry are the real deal this season. That they can get results even in games that they've never been able to get results in the past. As a prediction, a draw wouldn't surprise me. But I'm feeling brave. And it paid off for some of my predictions, which I'll allude to in a minute. I'm going to go actually for Coventry to get a good response and get a 2-1 away win. Shocking, right? Because they never get anything at Deepdale. but we've already seen them lose to Wrexham, and they actually put in a fabulous response immediately in the next game, and I have a feeling we will see something a little bit like that. And I don't think Preston have necessarily been playing at their shining best as of late, so I do think Coventry can get this Preston side. It's just a question of whether they can actually make the right calls and can manage the game correctly. But for me, it'll be a close one, but I think Coventry will just about take it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think it'll be a close game. Next up is Sheffield United versus Norwich. I mean, what a contrast. You saw both of these sides right down there within the bottom three, and what we're seeing at the moment is Sheffield United are in red hot form, 4 straight wins, and they're still, within 18th to 16th place in the table, but they are only 8 points off the top 6. That still sounds like a bit of a, long grasp, but win 2 more games in a row with teams above them slipping up, they will easily be within touching distance of top 6. They are so close now, in my opinion, Sheffield United, to start getting back there, and they've got the momentum now. And they're facing a Norwich side who not necessarily have hit the ground running since Philippe Clement has come in. They've won 1 home game, but then they've managed to not win any of their away games since Philippe Clement has come in. Now, against Watford, it was a really good fight. They actually took the lead twice and were leading at half time, but in the second half, they let the control slip, and Watford did, to be fair to them, play really, really well to get through the 3 points. Wehowever, as I've said already, Sheffield United in red hot form. I mean, they just beat Stoke City by 4-0. This is against a Stoke City side where a couple of weeks ago, they were having the best defence in the league, and it was looking very difficult for the teams who were going to score past them. This is a side that has just scored 4 goals past that side. Now, I get it, Stoke are in a tough place at the moment, and they had a bad day in the office, but even despite that, Sheffield United are proving to be there in really big confidence at the moment, and I think that will lead them to win this game. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 3-1 home victory to Sheffield United. It feels to me that they are in really, really good form at the moment, and I just don't see many teams stopping them at this moment in time. Next up, we've got Southampton versus West Brom. 2 very different results, and in fact, both were involved in a 3-1 scoreline in their games. Now, Southampton and Birmingham, I correctly predicted that game will end 3-1 to Southampton, and lo and behold, it actually kind of ended in the way that it happened. Now, I'm really pleased for Tonda Ecker. They recently announced, I think this week, that they've actually officially given him the manager's job, so I'm really glad that speculation has now died down and Ecker can actually start to relax into his role now. And what I'm pleased with as well is that the players have not been complacent. They've still been performing the goods, and they managed to get 3 goals past a Birmingham side who've been decent value for money all season. Adam Armstrong again in the pick of the goals. Benazaz is now starting to really come to his own in that Southampton shirt too. They're facing the West Brom side, who for me are in trouble. They are not being consistent whatsoever, and I actually correctly predicted Queen's Park Rangers to beat West Brom. Scoreline was slightly off. I said 2-1 rather than 3-1, but I didn't see too many people predict Queen's Park Rangers to win that game, and I can't lie, I wasn't massively confident because Queen's Park Rangers themselves, you hear me in a minute, but they're pretty inconsistent themselves. But I just had that feeling that away from home West Brom have not got what it takes at the moment. They've not picked up nowhere near enough points on the road to what they should be, and I do think at the moment they've got some tough games coming up, and I do think if they don't pull a good performance here, it's going to be very tough, for my personal opinion, for Ryan Mason to see through the next couple of games. I mean, they're right down, in the bottom half of the table, and expectations would have certainly been quite high going into this season. Maybe a little bit unfairly, but I think just with the pedigree for what West Brom have been doing in this division, naturally that does come with a certain amount of pressure. And for Ryan Mason's sake, whilst he started quite well, just things have just started to slip from his control. And I do think for me this will be another tough game. I mean, Southampton at home have looked really good since Tonda Ecker has taken over proceedings. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Southampton. I think they'll win this one pretty comfortably. Next up, we've got Swansea and Portsmouth. So Swansea are going into this game actually with a win. They got that very crucial win against Oxford, and I said in those predictions to me that if Swansea didn't get anything else other than a win, they would have been a relegation threatened side this season. They got the win. It's not clean sailing yet because Portsmouth are just below Swansea in the table, and if Portsmouth can get a result, then immediately that gap that Swansea have managed to get from that Oxford game disappears. And you've got to remember Portsmouth do have that game in hand as well, as I've already previously mentioned from the Charlton unfortunate game. So it does feel to me another relegation 6-pointer for Swansea, but if they can pick up maximum of 6 points against Oxford and Portsmouth, it gives me the confidence that Swansea, even if they may be in the lower half of the table this season, which will be a pretty disappointing season on the whole, it will mean that they're picking up points against the teams around them, and they will at least give them a little bit of confidence that they'll get some stability and survive in the Championship season. But for Portsmouth's point of view, similarly, they really need to win this game because they didn't have the opportunity to get out of the bottom three since their game never finished. And right now, the longer they do stay in the bottom three, it does, give the likes of Oxford and Swansea the opportunity to start picking up, some gaps and some distance between them. So, mustering for both. And for me, I've got a bit more confidence in Swansea. I think they've got a little bit more about them. And I do think it was a very good response from Vitor Matos with the performance that Swansea showed against West Brom. And I do think in this short turnaround still, that will be an interesting challenge to see if he can adjust to the short timings of games. But I think Swansea could make 6 points out of 6 here. As a prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Swansea. I just think they've got a little bit more attacking power. Portsmouth have just not been convinced enough on the road, so I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Swansea. Next up is Watford versus Sheffield United. So Watford were involved in a 3-goal comeback against Norwich. Kierkegaard getting 2 goals in that game, and Sodhi showing his height and his presence as a major threat for a lot of Championship defences. And I really enjoyed the link-up play that we were seeing with Ngakia, putting so many dangerous crosses in the box. Loser again being absolutely pivotal in his role in that Watford squad as well. And I do think there's loads there. What will define Watford being in the top 6 or not is their away form. And I do think that's been a lot of teams' problems this season, that they've just been pretty consistent at home, but they've not been consistent anywhere near good enough on the road. Now, for Sheffield Wednesday, of course, as I mentioned, their game never finished due to, the waterlogged pitch for Blackburn, but it's still not looking great for them. They're still on minus 10 points. They're 28 points away from safety as it stands, and they could get into a position where I think by the end of January, maybe at the earliest, they can start having the mathematical, impossibilities of surviving. I mean, it does feel like that their fate has been sealed already, like from the start of the season. It's really just going to be down to how much pride they can have to try and claw against those points deductions that they've been placed on them under the EFL, and to see if they can actually get some bright light at the end of the tunnel in terms of their future, in terms of actually getting an owner that can inject some money in and that they can get out of administration. So my attention really goes to their off-the-field stuff. I still hold all my prayers that Sheffield Wednesday can find a way out of it. As a prediction for this game, though, I think Watford are the team in form. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Watford. I think they'll win this game relatively comfortably. I think Sheffield Wednesday will pull up a fight, but I think Watford will be the more likely team. Next up, we've got Queen's Park Rangers versus Birmingham. This, I think, is a pretty close game, actually. So I mentioned already that Queen's Park Rangers have been pretty inconsistent, but they managed to back their form with a win against West Brom, and I was actually really impressed with Burrow. What a signing he has proven to be. I've not really, paid attention to him, but it's clear Stefan is now giving him more consistent starts because he is starting to create something going forward for this Queen's Park Rangers side. And I have been really impressed, actually, with how they reacted to that entire game. I know West Brom did get that goal, but Queen's Park Rangers reacted magnificently to take the game away from them. It was brilliant to watch, actually. Birmingham, their away record woes continue. It's another defeat on the road from them against Southampton. I know Damari Gray got a good goal just before half-time to make it, I think, 1-1 at the break or 2-1 at the break? But it just does feel to me that they missed some really big chances as well. So I do find with Birmingham that they have got the ingredients to be a top 6 side. They just need to improve their away form. They need to have a bit more threat and just need to be a little bit braver, I think, and just have a bit more defensive solidity and a little bit less defensive naivety when it comes to away performances. Now, I think this game here is so difficult because we've got a very inconsistent Queen's Park Rangers side, but you've got a Birmingham side who are pretty consistently quite bad on the road. So, do I back Queen's Park Rangers for another win to show a bit of consistency? But then, at the same time, Birmingham have been pretty inconsistent on the road. I don't think I predicted a draw yet, actually, now that I think about it. So, maybe this is a good opportunity to get one. So I think as a prediction here, I'm going to sit on the fence and go for a 1-1 draw. I could see either one of them maybe winning by the odd goal. And I think if anyone were to win by the odd goal, I think it would be Queen's Park Rangers. But to me, I'm going to go for the draw. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Bristol City versus Leicester. Now, this is an interesting one because both sides managed to do a performance which I wasn't expecting from both of them. So Bristol City lost to Millwall, and I did predict Bristol City to actually get a win. Now, in that game, it was so frustrating because I was correct in my ways that it would be only one goal in the game and one goal was going to swing it. And it felt to me that I was leaning into Bristol City getting the one goal and Millwall having to try and chase. But in the flip side, the reverse happened, and it was Millwall that got the goal, and it was Bristol City who ended up having to try and catch up. And good away performance again from Millwall. I shouldn't really be surprised at that at this point, but Bristol City had the chances. They just weren't clinical, and this is going to be a tougher game for them now, especially for what we just saw Leicester do to Derby, because they beat Derby by 3-1. They powered through, I think, 3-0 at the break. It was unbelievable. Now, I didn't actually realise how bad Derby's record was against Leicester. I know in the head-to-heads, it's actually been a little bit more even between Bristol City and Leicester, so maybe there's no head-to-head hoodoo there, but at the same time, I think what we have seen is Leicester perform pretty well with the options that they got, and we have seen what they're capable of. Prediction is a toughie. I'm going to go once again, playing it safe as a draw. 1-1 draw I'm going for this game, and yeah, probably quite a boring outcome, but that is just how I see it. Next up is Derby and Millwall. So I was just speaking about both Derby and Millwall just now because their opponents are playing against each other, and now they're playing each other here. So Derby, what on earth happened at home? I think what has happened at home is that they're certainly having goals dried up with not having Carlton Morris up front. There's a lot of pressure at the moment of the likes of Agyman to try and step up, and I just do think that's going to take them a little bit of time. But what's even worse of is that they're now starting to concede chances and goals again, and it did look like that they had their defence sorted for a while, but those sorts of old habits they were having at the start of the season are now starting to creep back onto them a little bit here. Millwall are third place in the table. Do not scratch your eyes, but Millwall are third place, and they're not far off their automatic promotion places, actually. If Middlesbrough do slip up, they've got a chance, actually, for Millwall to be second, which is absolutely unbelievable. It was a good win for them to get that 1-0 win on the road to Bristol City. I mean, not many sides have beaten Bristol City at Ashton Gate this season, so it's a really good result. And actually, what I was really impressed with was just their maturity, just how professional it was. When they got that goal, they shut up shop. They did not allow any other chances to really threaten them. And Bristol City did threaten when they needed to, but Millwall were very mature about how they defended it. So I was really, really impressed. But here, I think it's a very tough challenge here, and it's a really tough one to call because I think Derby have been relatively strong at home as a whole, but have also had some pretty strange performances like that last one against Leicester. Millwall have actually been quite bad on the road, and then suddenly they pulled that out. Both of them really shocked me for the bad in terms of how they ended up performing last game. So for me, I'm also kind of sitting on the fence. It's, never-ending draws for me now, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this game too. I feel like if I was to back a side, it probably would be Millwall at the moment, but I just have a nagging feeling Derby could score first, and I think if Derby score first, then I do sense Millwall will have to try and fight back, and I think they've got the capability of doing so. But to me, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, so I'm going to go for a low-scoring draw. And to a pretty big game next, it is Ipswich versus Stoke. It is two top six sides going head-to-head against each other now. What a response it was for Ipswich. I mean, to have those pretty two lackluster away performances against Oxford and Blackburn, to go back to Portsmouth Road, you know, when they've not been amazing, you know, they previously just drew 0-0 to Wrexham there, to score 3 past Coventry is no mean feat. They were incredible at going forward, and actually defensively they were really focused, and I was really impressed with Ipswich with that. But they're facing a Stoke side who I think will surrender the ball more than what Coventry will do, and that poses a challenge. So it's now going to be a question, can Ipswich break down this Stoke side? Can they find the gaps? Now, Stoke's form has been pretty bad. 4 defeats in their last 5 games, and they have been starting to leak a couple more goals. So this does feel like a really good time for Ipswich to play Stoke. I think they are their most vulnerable now. So it's a very tough one, and I feel like if any side's going to win, if it's going to be for Ipswich, it'll be down to the fact that they've been patient enough, and I think they could get a late goal and will win it that way. But if Stoke score first, I think that'll make things very difficult for Ipswich, because then I think Stoke will be so determined to keep that clean sheet. I actually watched this game 2 years ago when they were in the Championship, and it was actually a very comfortable game for Ipswich. It was actually their first home game, I think, of the season when they got promoted from League One. I think as a prediction for this time, both teams are heavily changed, and obviously Stoke have got a new manager as well. I'm going to go for 1-0 Ipswich win. That might regret that, but I think it's going to be similar to the West Brom game. I cast my mind back to the West Brom game where it was 0-0 for the majority of the game. Ipswich were probing forward, just trying to throw things at them. Eventually something slips and they get a goal that way. And I think it'll be a similar game to that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a 1-0 Ipswich win. Finally, to a pretty bonkers game I think we're going to get at the MKM Stadium. It's Hull versus Wrexham. Now, looking at the head-to-head history, it is very limited. But one thing I can say, they did actually play against each other for the very first time in the Carabao Cup. Do you remember what the scoreline was? It was a bonkers extra time win for Wrexham. It was an unbelievable result. Like, it really set the tone of the sort of dramatic games we're going to get. Now, of course, that was at the racecourse. This is going to be their first ever meeting at the MKM Stadium. From Hull's point of view, they lost to Middlesbrough, of course, as I already mentioned, conceding 4 goals in the process. It was certainly a tough one for them to take. Midfield-wise, I don't think they had any control of the game whatsoever, so they'll be wanting to get a little bit more control in this game. But they're facing I would say the informed side, the team with the longest unbeaten run, which is Wrexham, and you would have probably not expected me to say that based on how they started the season, but they've just found a way, Wrexham, to stay within the game. And actually, I think if they went for the game a little bit more, I think they could have got something against Preston, you know. Preston have been missing players like Osmarch and other players that where, defensively they looked a little bit weaker as well. And I do think going forward, they can offer a little bit more than what they're currently doing. But I think here, if it's going to be anything like that Carabao Cup game, we are going to get goals, and I'm really excited by the prospect of that. As a prediction, it's a tough one. I think Hull will play better, but Wrexham, I think, will be so determined to keep that unbeaten run going. So I'm kind of talking myself into a draw, but I've not gone for a high-scoring draw yet. So I'll go for one here. Let's go for a wacky 2-2 draw between these two sides. I would love to see it, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, and that's my predictions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, please do like the video. It really does help. Please also leave your score predictions and your thoughts in the comments down below as well. As always, guys, you can leave your predictions and score points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. You guys are legendary for joining this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.